The world is changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it. But as you listen now, let the weight of the modern world fall away. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a great silver mist. Beyond that mist lies Middle-earth, a land of ancient stone, deep roots, and starlit waters. We begin our journey not with a roar of battle, but with the quiet pulse of a golden age, in a place where time is measured only by the ripening of the fruit and the slow arc of the sun across the sky. Imagine the Shire. It is a land defined by its softness. There are no sharp edges in the Shire. The hills are like the backs of great sleeping green giants, covered in a velvet mantle of clover and rye. The air is cool, carrying the scent of damp earth, crushed herbs, and the faint, sweet aroma of pipeweed drifting from a distant porch. It is a place where the concept of fast does not exist. Everything moves with a rhythmic, intentional slowness. We find ourselves outside Bag End, the home of Bilbo Baggins. Focus your mind on the door. It is perfectly round, a deep forest green, with a single brass knob located exactly in the center. The brass is cool to the touch, polished so frequently that it feels as smooth as a river stone. When the door opens, it does not creak. It swings with a heavy, satisfying thud of well-oiled wood. Inside, the hallway is a tunnel of comfort. The floors are made of warm oak, smoothed by generations of barefoot hobbits. There are rugs underfoot, thick hand-woven textiles that swallow the sound of your footsteps. The walls are lined with bookshelves and maps, the parchment yellowed and smelling of vanilla and old memories. Bilbo is sitting at his desk. The only sound in the room is the rhythmic scratch of his quill against the heavy paper. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It is a hypnotic sound. The ink is dark and wet, glistening in the amber light of a single candle. The flame of the candle is steady. It does not flicker. It stands tall, a tiny pillar of light that illuminates the dust motes dancing in the air. These dust motes move in slow circular patterns, caught in a lazy current of air. Bilbo is writing about his party, a long-expected party. Outside, the preparations are underway, but even the preparations are quiet. Imagine the hobbits hanging lanterns in the great tree. The lanterns are made of colored glass, deep blues, soft ambers, and pale violets. They sway gently in the evening breeze, and as they move, the light shifts across the grass in a rhythmic dance. The grass is long and lush, cool against the skin. If you were to lie down in that grass, you would feel the heartbeat of the earth beneath you, a slow, steady thrum that tells you that you are safe. Down the road, a sound begins to emerge from the silence. It is the sound of a cart. Creak, clack, creak, clack. It is the sound of seasoned wood moving against iron. Gandalf the Grey is approaching. He is an old man in a gray cloak, but he is also a part of the landscape. His hat is a tall, pointed cone of blue-gray felt, weathered by the rains of 100 lands. His beard is a silver waterfall that reaches his belt. He sits on the bench of his cart, his hands resting loosely on the reins. He is not driving the horse. He and the horse are simply moving together, in harmony with the road. As Gandalf enters Hobbiton, he hums a low, resonant note. It is a sound that vibrates in the chest, a grounding frequency that mirrors the hum of a beehive in midsummer. He meets Frodo Baggins. Frodo is younger, his eyes bright but calm. They sit together on the cart as it winds through the lanes. They pass hedgerows thick with wild roses and blackberries. The scent of the berries is heavy and sweet, almost intoxicating. The bees are finishing their work for the day. They're buzzing a distant, fuzzy drone that blends into the background of the Shire's evening song. They talk, but their voices are low. There is no urgency in their speech. They speak of the road and the way it goes ever on and on. They speak of the stars that are beginning to appear in the darkening sky. The sky is now a deep, restful indigo. The first star to appear is Arundel, the evening star. It is a piercing point of white light, steady and unblinking. It watches over the Shire like a guardian. The party begins under the party tree. The air is filled with the smell of roasting meats, fresh bread, and sweet ale. The hobbits move in a slow, circular dance. Their feet tap against the earth. Thud, thud, tap, thud, thud, tap. It is a heartbeat rhythm. Bilbo stands to give his speech. He feels the ring in his pocket. It is a small weight, but it feels strangely heavy, like a leaden marble. It is cool against his thigh. When he puts his hand in his pocket, the gold is smooth, too smooth. It feels like something that was never meant to be touched by mortal hands. When Bilbo disappears, it is not a violent act. It is like a candle being blown out in a large, quiet room. One moment he is there, and the next there is only the lingering echo of his voice and the smell of the night air. Back at Bag End, the ring falls to the wooden floor. Clink! It is a sharp, metallic sound that cuts through the silence. It does not bounce. It hits the wood and stays there, anchored by its own unnatural gravity. Gandalf sits by the fire. The fire has burned down to red embers. The embers pulse with a deep inner light. They breathe, in, out, in, out. Gandalf stares into the coals, his mind traveling to dark places. But here, in the Shire, the darkness is far away. He reaches for the ring. He does not touch it directly at first. He uses a pair of iron tongs. The iron is black and cold. When the gold ring is dropped into the fire, it does not change color. It does not glow red. It remains a pale, chilling yellow. When Frodo takes the ring from the fire, it is cool. This is the first mystery. The heat of the flame cannot touch the coldness of the ring. Frodo looks at the inner band. Letters begin to form, flowing like liquid fire. They are beautiful, yet they carry a weight of ancient sorrow. The Elvish script is elegant, with long sweeping curves that look like the wind caught in the grass. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. The words are a whisper in the room. They are not shouted. They are felt in the marrow of the bones. Now the journey must begin, but even the departure is slow. Frodo and Samwise Gamgee set out at the hour when the world is most still, just before the dawn. The mist is thick in the hollows. It is a white, clinging fog that tastes of silver and water. It muffles all sound. As they walk, their cloaks become damp with the mist. The fabric is heavy and protective. Sam stops at the edge of a field. If I take one more step, it'll be the farthest away from home I've ever been. He speaks softly. The silence of the field swallows his words. He looks back at the Shire. The chimneys are starting to smoke, a thin blue ribbon of wood smoke rising into the pale sky. The Shire is sleeping. It is a place of dreams. They walk through the woods. The trees here are old. Their bark is thick and furrowed, covered in soft, springy moss. The moss is a vibrant emerald green, and it feels like a sponge under their fingers. The hobbits walk quietly. They have the gift of silence. They move through the undergrowth without snapping a single twig. They are a part of the forest floor. But a shadow is moving. From the east, the Black Riders have come. Imagine the sound of the Nazgul. It is not a human sound. It is a long, drawn-out hiss, like the sound of air escaping a bellows, or the sound of dry leaves scuttling across a tombstone. The rider is draped in black robes that seem to absorb the light around them. The horse is a powerful, dark beast, its breath coming in heavy, ragged plumes of steam. The hobbits hide under the roots of a great oak tree. The earth is cool and smells of decaying leaves and ancient fungi. They press themselves into the soil. They become a part of the roots. The Black Rider stops above them. He leans down. The sound of his sniffing is a slow, rhythmic intake of air. Inhale, exhale, inhale. Frodo feels the ring. It wants to be found. It hums. It is a low-frequency vibration that starts in his hand and moves up his arm, settling in his chest. It is a cold hum, like the sound of a frozen wind. But the moment passes. The shadow moves on. The forest breathes again. The birds begin to chirp, small, delicate notes that break the tension like silver needles. The hobbits reach the Buckleberry Ferry. The water of the Brandywine River is dark and deep. It moves with a slow, powerful current. The wooden slats of the ferry creak as they step onto them. Creak. The water laps against the side of the boat. Slap, ripple, slap. It is a soothing, repetitive sound. They pull the rope and the ferry glides across the water. Behind them, the Black Rider stands on the shore, a silhouette against the gray mist. He cannot touch the water. The water is a barrier of purity. They reach the town of Bree. It is raining, a soft, persistent drizzle that turns the cobblestones into mirrors of lamplight. The sound of the rain is a constant, gentle static. Shh. It washes away the dust of the road. They enter the Prancing Pony. The inn is a cavern of warmth. The air is thick with the smell of pipeweed, wet wool, and beef stew. The fire in the hearth is large, the logs hissing as the sap boils out of them. In the corner sits a man, Strider. He is a ranger, a man who has lived his life in the silence of the wilds. He does not speak much. When he does, his voice is like the sound of gravel shifting under a deep river. He watches the hobbits with eyes that have seen the rise and fall of kingdoms, but here, in the flickering light of the inn, he is just a shadow among shadows. The hobbits go to their room. The beds are soft, filled with goose feathers. The blankets are heavy. Frodo lies in the dark, listening to the rain on the roof. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter. It is the perfect rhythm for sleep. The ring is on a chain around his neck. He can feel it rising and falling with his breath. Rising, falling, rising, falling. Outside, the world is vast and dangerous, but here, in the heart of the storm, there is a moment of stillness. The journey is long, the road is dark, but for tonight, the rain is just rain, and the fire is just warmth. The shadows of the room are long and soft. The candle burns down to a pool of wax. The light fades, and fades, and fades. And the silence of Middle-earth settles over everything like a soft fall of snow. The morning in Bree begins with the sound of gray light. The rain from the night before has slowed to a fine silver mist that clings to the eaves of the houses and the stone walls of the inn. There is a profound stillness in the air, the kind that only exists when the world is caught between a storm and the dawn. The hobbits wake to the smell of cold ashes and damp stone. Every movement is slow. The rustle of their woolen cloaks, the tightening of leather straps on their packs. Each sound is isolated, a small note in the vast silence of the town. Strider leads them out of the gate. His footsteps are different from the hobbits. A hobbit's step is light and padded, like a heartbeat. Strider's step is long and deliberate, the sound of a predator who has learned to move in harmony with the wind. As they leave the walls of Bree, the cobblestones give way to soft, wet grass and the dark, spongy earth of the Chetwood, the Midgewater marshes. Imagine the texture of the air as they enter the Midgewater marshes. The air is thick. It carries the scent of stagnant water, decaying reeds, and the heavy, sweet smell of peat. The ground beneath their boots is not solid. It is a living thing that breathes and shifts. With every step, there is a soft, wet sound. Squish, pulse, squish. It is a rhythmic sound that demands a slow pace. You cannot hurry through the marshes. You must yield to the mud. The insects here do not buzz with a sharp sting. Instead, they create a constant low-frequency hum that hangs over the water like a veil. Thousands of tiny wings vibrating in unison. It is a white noise, a sound that fills the ears and lulls the mind into a trance. The hobbits move through the tall reeds, which brush against their cloaks with a sound like dry silk. Shh, hish. Shh, hish. The sun is a pale, clouded disk above the mist. It does not glare. It glows with a muted, milky light. Frodo watches the water. The pools are dark and still, reflecting the gray sky like ancient, tarnished mirrors. Occasionally, a bubble rises from the depths and pops with a tiny liquid plop. This is the language of the earth, slow, deep, and patient. The ruins of Weathertop. They leave the marshes behind and begin the long climb toward Amon Sul, the hill of Weathertop. The landscape changes. The soft green of the Shire is a distant memory. Here the world is made of stone and weathered grass. The wind begins to pick up, but it is not a cold wind. It is a dry, whistling breeze that carries the scent of ancient dusk and sun-baked rock. As they ascend, the grass becomes thinner and more brittle. It rustles with a metallic sound. The ruins of the great watchtower stand against the sky like broken teeth. The stone is gray and crusted with orange lichen. If you were to press your palm against these stones, you would feel the residual warmth of 1,000 years of sunsets. The stone is rough, textured with the history of the kings of old. Night falls on Weathertop. The sky is a vast indigo dome. The stars are not mere points of light. They are heavy, glowing orbs of silver. The hobbits gather in a small hollow just below the summit. They build a fire, not a large one, but a small, huddling collection of embers. The smoke rises in a thin, straight line, disappearing into the dark. Then the shadows arrive. The Nazgul do not walk, they glide. Their movements are like ink spreading through water. The air around them freezes. It is not the cold of winter, but the cold of the void. Imagine the silence that follows them. It is a heavy, suffocating silence that rings in the ears. Frodo feels the ring. It is no longer a passive weight. It is pulsing. Thump, thump, thump. It is trying to align its heartbeat with his own. The ring-wraiths draw their swords. The sound of steel sliding from a sheath is a long, thin scream of metal. When the blade pierces the air, the world shifts. Frodo puts on the ring. Suddenly, the world of color and shadow is gone. He is in a world of white mist and rushing wind. The wraiths are no longer black robes. They are pale, skeletal kings in gray shrouds, their eyes glowing with a cold blue fire. Their voices are whispers that sound like the grinding of ice. The wound in Frodo's shoulder is a point of absolute cold. It is a splinter of darkness that begins to spread through his veins like frozen mercury. Strider leaps into the fray. He carries a torch. The orange flame is a defiant roar against the gray mist. The smell of burning pitch and wood smoke fills the air. The fire crackles, snap, pop, hiss, as it drives the shadows back. The wraiths retreat into the darkness, leaving behind a silence that is heavy with the scent of ozone and fear. The flight from the ford. The journey from Weathertop is a blur of pain and silver light. Frodo is fading. He is becoming a part of the mist. He feels the horse beneath him, the great white mare, Asphalloth. The horse's breathing is a powerful, rhythmic gallop. Huff, huff, huff. The vibrations of the horse's muscles move through Frodo's body, keeping him anchored to the physical world. Arwen Undomiel is with him. Her voice is like the sound of a silver bell chiming in a deep forest. She speaks in Elvish, a language of vowels and soft consonants that flows like a mountain stream. Frodo, stay with the light. Her breath is warm against his cold skin. They reach the ford of Bruinen. The water here is fast and cold. It is the sound of 1,000 voices whispering at once. The Nazgul are close behind, their black horses foaming at the mouth, their hooves striking the stones with the sound of hammers. Arwen calls to the river. The water does not just rise, it awakens. Imagine the sound of the flood. It is a deep, subsonic roar that shakes the very foundations of the earth. The waves take the shape of white horses, their manes made of spray and foam. They charge down the riverbed, a wall of liquid silver that sweeps the shadows away. The sound of the crashing water is a cleansing force, washing the air clean of the wraith's foul scent. The Peace of Rivendell. Frodo wakes. He is not in the cold dark, he is in a bed of white linen. The sheets are cool and smell of lavender and sun-dried wood. He hears the sound of water, not the roaring flood of the ford, but a gentle musical cascade. Rivendell is the house of Elrond. It is a place where the air itself seems to shimmer with a pale golden light. The architecture is not built, it is grown. The pillars are like trees of white stone, their branches intertwining to form the roof. There are no walls, only arches that open to the valley. Imagine the sound of Rivendell at twilight. It is a symphony of soft textures. The water, the many waterfalls of the valley create a constant low-level white noise that relaxes the nervous system. The wind, the breeze moves through the valley, carrying the song of the elves. The singing is not loud, it is a melodic hum that seems to come from the trees themselves. The light, the sun sets slowly here, turning the cliffs into walls of copper and gold. As the light fades, the lanterns of Rivendell are lit. They are pale spheres of moonlight caught in glass. Frodo walks through the gardens. The paths are made of smooth gray pebbles that crunch softly under his feet. He meets Bilbo. His old friend is sitting on a stone bench, wrapped in a thick, colorful rug. Bilbo looks older, but his face is peaceful. They sit together and watch the valley fall into shadow. "I should like to have seen the mountains again," Bilbo whispers. His voice is thin and dry like old parchment. They look toward the misty mountains, their peaks capped with eternal snow, glowing like white fire in the distance. The Council of Rivendell. The council takes place in a circular porch open to the sky. The delegates sit in chairs of carved wood. There is Elrond, whose face is as timeless as the stars. There is Gandalf, his gray robes now clean and smelling of pine. There is Boromir of Gondor, his armor clinking softly as he moves, a sound of heavy duty and pride. There is Legolas, who moves with the silence of a falling leaf, and Gimli, whose breath is deep and carries the scent of the deep earth. The ring sits on a plinth in the center. In the bright daylight of Rivendell, the ring looks almost ordinary, but the air around it seems to warp. If you look at the ring long enough, the world begins to blur at the edges. It is a point of absolute density. The debate is long, the voices rise and fall like the tide. Boromir's voice is a baritone rumble, Legolas's is a tenor clarion. But the most powerful sound is the silence that follows Frodo's words. "I will take it," he says. His voice is small, but it is clear. It is the sound of a single drop of water hitting a deep, still pool. Drip. "I will take the ring," he repeats, "though I do not know the way." Elrond looks at him. His eyes are deep wells of wisdom. "If you have it, you shall be the bearer of the One Ring." The words are a seal. The fellowship is formed. 9 companions to face the shadow. The departure from the hidden valley. Before they leave, there are gifts. Bilbo gives Frodo Sting, the elven blade. It is light, a sliver of silver that feels like an extension of his own arm. He gives him the mithril shirt. It is a mesh of tiny rings woven from a metal that is stronger than steel, but light as a feather. When Frodo puts it on, it is cold against his skin for a moment, then it warms to his body temperature, becoming a secret second skin of protection. The fellowship prepares to depart. They stand at the edge of the valley. The air is crisp and clear. The smell of the morning is the smell of pine needles and cold stone. They begin to walk. One by one, they follow the path that leads up and out of the paradise of Rivendell. Their boots rhythmically strike the stone path, clack, thud, clack. The sound of their breathing is a collective effort. They are moving away from the music and the light toward the high, cold passes of the mountains. Behind them, the waterfalls of Rivendell continue to sing, their voices fading into a distant, soothing hum as the travelers climb higher. The sun begins to set behind the peaks, casting long purple shadows across the world. The fellowship stops for the night. They do not light a fire. They wrap themselves in their cloaks and lie down on the hard, cold earth. The stars above are silent and watchful. Frodo closes his eyes. He listens to the wind whistling through the high crags. It is a lonely sound, but it is also a song of the journey. The ring is heavy. The ring is silent. The world is waiting. As you drift now, imagine the rhythmic step of the fellowship. Step, step, step. Moving through the mountains, moving through the mist. The sound of the wind is a lullaby. The cold is a blanket. The journey goes on, and you are part of the long, slow walk through the history of Middle-earth. The mountains are tall. The valleys are deep. The stars are eternal. Sleep now, for the road is long, and the rest is well earned. The snows of Caradhras and the echoes of Moria. The fellowship has left the hidden valley of Rivendell. The music of the waterfalls has faded, replaced by a much older, deeper sound. the sound of the wind moving across the face of the world. As they walk, the air begins to change. It loses the sweetness of the elven gardens and takes on the crisp, sharp edge of the high country. It is an air that tastes of ice and ancient stone. The long walk south. Imagine the fellowship as they move across the highlands of Holland. The landscape is a mosaic of gray stone and red-berried holly trees. The ground is firm beneath their boots. Clack, thud, clack. The rhythm of their walking becomes a meditation. Aragorn leads the way, his eyes always scanning the horizon, but his movements are as fluid as a river. Behind him, the hobbits struggle to keep pace, their short legs moving in a quick, steady tempo. The sun is a pale, distant light. It casts long, thin shadows that stretch across the heather. There is a profound sense of solitude here. The only other inhabitants are the birds, great black crows of Saruman, the Crebain. Imagine the sound they make. It is not a song, it is a harsh, rhythmic caw, caw that echoes against the cliffs. When they fly overhead, they form a dark, swirling cloud that the snows of Caradhras and the echoes of Moria. The Fellowship has left the hidden valley of Rivendell. The music of the waterfalls has faded, replaced by a much older, deeper sound, the sound of the wind moving across the face of the world. As they walk, the air begins to change. It loses the sweetness of the elven gardens and takes on the crisp, sharp edge of the high country. It is an air that tastes of ice and ancient stone. The long walk south. Imagine the Fellowship as they move across the highlands of Holland. The landscape is a mosaic of gray stone and red-berried holly trees. The ground is firm beneath their boots. Clack, thud, clack. The rhythm of their walking becomes a meditation. Aragorn leads the way, his eyes always scanning the horizon, but his movements are as fluid as a river. Behind him, the hobbits struggle to keep pace, their short legs moving in a quick, steady tempo. The sun is a pale, distant light. It casts long, thin shadows that stretch across the heather. There is a profound sense of solitude here. The only other inhabitants are the birds, great black crows of Saruman, the Crebain. Imagine the sound they make. It is not a song, it is a harsh, rhythmic caw, caw that echoes against the cliffs. When they fly overhead, they form a dark, swirling cloud that blots out the sun for a brief moment, casting a sudden, cool shadow over the Fellowship. The hobbits hide beneath the bushes, the dry leaves rustling softly against their cloaks. Shh, shh. The danger passes, leaving only the sound of their own breath, rhythmic and steady in the silence. The ascent of Caradhras. They turn toward the mountains. The misty mountains rise up like a wall of iron and ice. The tallest peak is Caradhras the Cruel. As they climb, the temperature drops degree by degree. The air becomes thin, making every breath feel light and precious. The first snowflakes begin to fall. They are not the heavy, wet flakes of the Shire. These are dry, crystalline shards of ice. They fall silently, landing on the woolen cloaks of the travelers with a sound so soft it can only be felt, not heard. As the storm intensifies, the world turns white. The gray stone disappears. The red holly trees disappear. There is only the white blur of the wind and the rhythmic crunch of boots through the snow. Crunch, pause, crunch. Legolas walks on top of the snow. Imagine the lightness of his being. He does not sink. He skims the surface like a bird's shadow. For him, the snow is a silver floor, but for the others, it is a heavy, clinging weight. Frodo feels the cold seeping into his bones. It is a slow, numbing cold that starts at the fingertips and moves inward. The ring on his chest feels like a hot coal against his skin, a strange burning contrast to the freezing wind. Saruman's voice travels on the wind. It is a melodic, terrifying chant in an ancient tongue. The mountain itself begins to groan. Imagine the sound of shifting stone, a deep subsonic rumble that vibrates in the soles of their feet. Rumble. An avalanche falls. It is a majestic, terrifying cascade of white, moving with the grace of a waterfall, but the weight of a mountain. The sound is a deafening roar that slowly fades into a hiss as the snow settles. "We must go under the mountain," says Gandalf. His voice is a low anchor in the storm. "We must go through the mines of Moria." The doors of Durin. They descend from the heights and reach the dark walls of the mountain. Here the world is black and still. A pool of water lies before the gates, the Watcher's Pool. The water is as flat as a sheet of dark glass. It does not ripple. It reflects the stars with a clarity that is haunting. The smell here is of wet stone and old, stagnant things. The doors of Durin are invisible at first. They are made of Ithildin, a substance that only mirrors the light of the moon and the stars. As the clouds part and the moon shines down, the silver lines begin to glow. They are delicate, like spiderwebs woven of starlight. They trace the shapes of trees, hammers, and stars. Gandalf stands before the doors. He speaks words of power, but they are whispered. Melon. The word is a soft exhaling of breath. The doors do not swing open with a crash. They slide apart with a heavy, grinding sigh of ancient stone. Grind. Behind them, the Watcher in the water awakens. Imagine the sound of 1,000 wet tentacles slithering across the rock. It is a sliding, sucking sound. The water erupts in a spray of cold foam. The Fellowship rushes into the darkness of the mountain just as the doors are smashed shut behind them. Boom! The sound echoes through the tunnels, traveling deeper and deeper into the earth until it is lost in the silence. The dark of Moria. Now we are in the deep places of the world. The air here is different. It is still. It is heavy with the scent of minerals, cold iron, and the dust of ages. There is no wind here. The only movement is the air disturbed by their passage. Gandalf lights his staff. It is not a bright light. It is a soft blue-white glow that illuminates only a few feet in front of them. The light reflects off the walls, which are carved with a precision that only dwarves could achieve. The pillars rise up into the darkness, disappearing like the trunks of stone trees. The silence of Moria is absolute. If you stop moving, you can hear the sound of your own heart beating. Lub-dub, lub-dub. You can hear the blood rushing in your ears. The Fellowship walks for miles. The sound of their footsteps on the stone floor is a rhythmic, echoing tap, tap, tap. The echo travels away from them, bouncing off distant walls and returning as a ghost of a sound. They pass through the great hall of Dwarodelf. It is a cathedral of stone. Imagine the scale of it. Thousands of pillars, each one carved with the history of a people who loved the earth. The light of Gandalf's staff barely touches the base of these columns. Above is a darkness so deep it feels like a physical weight. They find the tomb of Balin. The room is square and cold. A single shaft of light falls from a high vent, illuminating the white stone of the sarcophagus. The dust here is thick, like a gray carpet. When Pippin knocks a bucket into the well, the sound is a slow-motion disaster. Clink, clank, thud. Each sound is followed by a long pause as it travels down the deep shaft, and then the silence is broken by a new sound. Doom, doom, doom. It is the sound of drums. They are not being played, they are being felt. It is a rhythmic thumping sound that comes from the very heart of the mountain. It is the heartbeat of the orcs waking up in the dark. The Bridge of Khazad-dûm. The Fellowship runs. The sound of their running is a chaotic, frantic rhythm against the steady doom-doom of the drums. They reach the bridge, a narrow span of stone over a bottomless abyss. The air here is hot. It smells of sulfur and burning coal. From the shadows, the Balrog emerges. It is a creature of shadow and flame. Imagine its breathing, a wheezing, fiery intake of air that sounds like a furnace door opening. Its wings are made of smoke that stretches from wall to wall. As it moves, the stone of the bridge cracks and pops from the heat. Gandalf stands on the bridge. "You shall not pass." His voice is a clap of thunder that shatters the rhythmic drumming. He strikes the stone with his staff. The bridge breaks. The sound of the stone snapping is like a lightning strike. As Gandalf falls into the abyss, the world goes silent. For the Fellowship, time slows down. They watch him disappear into the shadows, a single point of gray light swallowed by the dark. The only sound is the ragged, sobbing breath of the hobbits as they reach the eastern gate. The sunlight of Dimrill Dale. They burst out of the mountain and into the blinding light of day. The sun is a shock to the senses. The air is cold and fresh. The hobbits collapse onto the gray stones of the Dimrill Dale. The sound of their weeping is a soft, rhythmic sorrow that blends with the sound of the wind. Aragorn does not let them stay. By nightfall, these hills will be swarming with orcs. His voice is firm but gentle. They must keep moving. They must reach the woods. As they walk away from the mountain, the great peaks of Moria watch them go. The mountains are indifferent to their grief. They are stone and ice, and they have seen 1,000 ages pass. The Fellowship moves south, their shadows long and thin on the ground. The rhythm of their walking resumes, step, step, step. But it is a heavier rhythm now. One of them is gone. The forest of Lothlorien lies ahead. It is a golden glow on the horizon. As they approach, the air begins to change again. It becomes warm. It becomes musical. The sound of the trees is a soft, melodic rustle, a welcome after the cold stone of the mountain. We leave them at the eaves of the golden wood. The sun is setting, casting a long amber glow over the world. The trees are tall and silver. The leaves are gold. The silence here is not the silence of the tomb, but the silence of a dream. Close your eyes and imagine the golden leaves falling one by one. They do not hit the ground with a thud. They settle with a sigh, sigh, sigh. The journey continues, but for now the earth is soft, the air is warm, and the stars are coming out to watch over the Fellowship. Sleep now, The golden wood is a place of rest. The shadows are far away. The world is safe in the light of the trees. The golden wood and the silver Anduin. The fellowship stands at the edge of the world's most ancient dream. Behind them lie the cold, indifferent stones of Moria. Before them lies the forest of Lothlorien. As they step beneath the eaves of the trees, the very quality of the air shifts. It is no longer the thin, biting air of the mountains. It is a warm, golden atmosphere that feels like breathing in the essence of a summer afternoon. The texture of the golden wood. Imagine the trees, the malorn trees. Their bark is not rough like the oaks of the Shire or the pines of the mountains. It is smooth, silver, and cool to the touch, like polished silk. The leaves above are not green, they are a deep, shimmering gold. Even in the stillness they seem to move, a rhythmic swaying that creates a sound like distant, rushing water. Shh, shh. It is a sound that lulls the mind, a white noise that erases the echoes of the drums in the deep. The ground is covered in Nifredil and Eleanor, pale white and golden flowers that grow in a thick, soft carpet. Every step the fellowship takes is cushioned. There is no sound of boots on stone here, only the soft, muffled pressure of feet on petals and moss. The hobbits feel the tension leaving their shoulders. Their breathing, which had been ragged and sharp, begins to slow, matching the slow, deep pulse of the forest. They are led by Haldir and the elven march wardens. These elves do not walk through the woods, they glide. Their gray cloaks make them nearly invisible against the silver bark. When they speak, their voices are like the wind through a flute, pure, melodic, and resonant. They speak in the tongue of the Galadrim, a language where the words flow into one another without sharp breaks, creating a verbal river that carries the listeners away. The Mirror of Galadriel. During the night, Galadriel leads Frodo to a hidden garden. The grass here is silver in the moonlight. In the center is a basin of silver, standing on a pedestal of stone. She fills it with water from a nearby stream. The sound of the water pouring is a clear, bell-like tinkle, tinkle, splash. The water in the mirror is perfectly still. It is a liquid void. "I will look," Frodo whispers. As he leans over, the water becomes a window. He sees things that were, things that are, and some things that have not yet come to pass. He sees the great eye, a ring of fire, pulsing with a rhythmic heat. Thump, shh, thump, shh. It is the sound of a burning sun. Frodo pulls back, his breath coming in short, quick gasps. Galadriel looks at him, her eyes steady and ancient. She refuses the ring when he offers it. Her struggle is a quiet one, a transition from a terrifying, beautiful queen of storms back to a simple elf who will diminish and go into the west. The tension in the air breaks like a bubble, leaving only the scent of the morning dew. The gifts of the elves. Before they depart, the fellowship gathers on the banks of the Anduin. The elves provide them with 3 boats made of gray wood, light and strong. They are stocked with lembas, the waybread of the elves. Imagine the texture of lembas. It is wrapped in a large green leaf. When you break it, it has a clean, crisp snap. It tastes of honey, nuts, and a memory of home. One small bite is enough to sustain a man for a day of long toil. It provides a slow-release energy that keeps the body calm and the mind focused. Galadriel gives each member a gift. To Legolas, a bow of the Galadrim, its string made of elven hair, silent and deadly. To Sam, a small box of earth from her garden, a promise of regrowth and green things. To Aragorn, the Elessar, the elf stone, a green jewel that glows with the light of the sun through spring leaves. To Frodo, a crystal phial containing the light of Eärendil's star. May it be a light to you in dark places, she says. The phial is cool in Frodo's hand. The liquid inside shifts like captured moonlight, a soft swirling white that promises that no darkness is absolute. They launch the boats. The Anduin is the great river, a massive, slow-moving body of water. The sound of the oars dipping into the river is a rhythmic, meditative pulse. Dip, pull, swirl, dip, pull, swirl. The Fellowship glides between high, steep banks of stone. The walls of the canyon are ancient, carved by the water over millions of years. The river is a deep tea-colored brown, reflecting the trees and the sky in a distorted, beautiful mosaic. They pass the Argonath, the Pillars of the Kings, two massive statues of Isildur and Anarion carved into the very cliffs. Imagine the scale of them. Their hands are outstretched in a gesture of warning and power. The sound of the water rushing around their feet is a deep, resonant roar that echoes off the canyon walls. It is a sound of permanence, of a history that dwarves the lives of the travelers. As they drift south, the world becomes quieter. The golden light of Lorien is far behind them. The air becomes cooler, carrying the scent of the coming mountains. They reach the lawn of Parth Galen, above the great falls of Rauros. The roar of the falls is a constant, distant thudding, like the sound of 1,000 drums muffled by a heavy curtain. The breaking of the Fellowship. The peace is broken, but it happens in the shadows. Boromir, driven by the weight of his people's fear, approaches Frodo. The sound of his footsteps on the dry leaves is sharp, crunch, crunch. His voice is no longer the steady rumble of a warrior. It is thin and strained. "Give it to me," he whispers. The ring hums in response. Frodo flees. He puts on the ring, and the world turns into that familiar white mist where the sound of the wind is the only companion. He climbs the hill of Amon Hen, the hill of sight. He sees the world on fire, the shadow spreading like ink on a map. He knows now that he must go alone. In the physical world, the Uruk-hai have arrived. They are creatures of iron and leather. Their breathing is a wet, guttural snarl. The sound of their running is a heavy, rhythmic thud, thousands of boots striking the earth at once. The forest of Parth Galen is filled with the clash of steel, clang, ring, thud. Boromir finds his redemption in the sound of his horn, the horn of Gondor. It is a long, mournful blast that echoes through the trees, a call for help that he knows will not come in time. Aum. The sound is a vibration of pure courage. He falls under the arrows of the Uruk-hai, each strike a dull thwack against his armor. Aragorn finds him as the sun begins to set. The light is a deep, bloody red. Boromir's voice is a mere whisper now. "I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, my king." Aragorn kisses his brow. The silence that follows is the silence of a finished life. They place Boromir in one of the elven boats, his sword on his chest and his broken horn at his side. They let the boat drift into the current. It moves slowly at first, then faster as it approaches the falls of Rauros. It disappears into the mist and the thunder of the water, a silver spark swallowed by the white foam. The two paths. On the other side of the river, Frodo stands in the tall grass. He is alone, but then he hears a splashing sound. Splash, kick, splash. It is Sam, Sam who cannot swim, but who will not let his master go into the dark alone. "I'm coming, Mr. Frodo." Frodo pulls him into the boat. They sit together, their breathing heavy and synchronized. The water of the Anduin carries them towards the east, toward the Emin Mule, toward the land where the shadows lie. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli stand on the shore. They do not follow. They look toward the woods where Merry and Pippin have been taken. "Let's hunt some orc," Aragorn says. His voice is a low, determined growl. They turn and begin to run. Their footsteps are a fast, rhythmic tattoo on the earth. Thump, 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 thump. They are moving with a new purpose, a rhythm of pursuit. The sun sets, the stars come out. The river flows on, indifferent to the breaking of the group. The water is cold, the night is long. But the journey continues, split into two threads, weaving their way through the tapestry of Middle-earth. Sleep now, the river is carrying you. The sound of the oars is your heartbeat. The mist is your blanket. The journey goes ever on. The Emyn Mule and the Riders of the Mark. The fellowship has broken, and with it, the rhythm of the journey has shifted. We follow Frodo and Sam as they struggle through the Emyn Mule, the hills of mist. Imagine this place not as a mountain, but as a maze of gray, razor-sharp stone. The air here is thin and tastes of wet slate and cold iron. There is no soil here, only the relentless, unyielding hardness of the rock. The labyrinth of stone. The sound of the Emyn Mule is the sound of friction. Every movement is a scrape, scritch, scrape. The hobbits' cloaks, though made of elven silk, brush against the stone with a dry, hushed sound. The mist clings to the crevices, moving in slow, heavy swirls that obscure the path. It is a world of monochrome, grays, silvers, and deep charcoal shadows. Frodo and Sam move with a slow, deliberate caution. They use the elven rope Galadriel gave them. Focus on the texture of the rope. It is silver gray, braided with a geometric precision that makes it feel alive. It is cool and smooth, yet it grips the stone with a silent, magical tenacity. When Sam unties it, the rope slides down the cliff face with a sound like a long, soft sigh. Sh. It falls into his hands, coiling itself like a sleeping snake. They are being followed. The sound of the follower is a rhythmic wet patter. Pad, pad, click. Pad, pad, click. It is the sound of long, thin fingers and toes gripping the wet stone. Gollum. The taming of Smeagol. In the dead of night, the shadow strikes. The struggle is not a loud one. It is a tangle of breathing and the sliding of skin on rock. Gollum's voice is the most distinct texture in the dark. It is a sound of internal friction, a croaking, gurgling cough that starts deep in his throat. Gollum! Gollum! It sounds like a stone trapped in a drain. When they capture him, the tension in the air changes. Gollum's skin is cold and clammy like the belly of a fish. He whines, a high-pitched, thin sound that vibrates like a broken violin string. But as Frodo speaks to him with kindness, the first kindness the creature has felt in centuries, the sharp edges of Gollum's voice begin to soften. He becomes Smeagol. Smeagol's breathing is fast and shallow, but as he agrees to lead them, it slows down. He leads them through the dead marshes. The marshes are a place of absolute, stagnant silence. The water is the color of bruised plums and oil. It does not flow, it sits. The smell is heavy, a thick, cloying scent of ancient decay and wet sulfur. Imagine the sound of your boots sinking into the peat. Schlorp. Pause. Schlorp. It is a rhythmic, suctioning sound that tries to pull you down into the deep. In the water, the faces of the dead flicker like pale ghosts. They are not physical, they are memories of light trapped in the mud. Candles flicker in the mist, the corpse lights. They do not give off heat, they are cold flickering points of blue fire that dance in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Flicker, fade, flicker. Above, a Nazgul on a fell beast passes. The sound of the beast's wings is a heavy, rhythmic, leathery beat. Flap, shh, flap, shh. Each stroke of the wing pushes the mist aside, creating a cold downdraft that smells of the void. The hobbits lie face down in the muck, their breathing suppressed, their heartbeats the only rhythm in the world. The shadow passes, and the silence of the marshes returns, even deeper than before. While the hobbits crawl through the mud, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are running. They have been running for 3 days. The plains of Rohan, the Rittermark, are a sea of grass. Imagine the sound of the wind across the mark. It is a constant, low-frequency roar, like the sound of the ocean heard from a distance. The grass is long and golden green, undulating in great rhythmic waves that stretch to the horizon. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Aragorn's running is a masterclass in endurance. His breathing is a deep, steady bellows. In, 2, 3. Out, 2, 3. His boots strike the earth with a firm, rhythmic thud. Behind him, Legolas moves with a preternatural lightness, his feet barely depressing the blades of grass. Gimli, though shorter, has the rhythm of a stone rolling downhill, unstoppable and heavy. Clump, clump, clump. They meet the riders of Rohan, the Eorlingas. The sound of 1,000 horses on the open plain is a sound of pure power. It is a rhythmic thunder that shakes the very bones. Dud-a-dum, dud-a-dum, dud-a-dum. The earth vibrates. The air is filled with the scent of horse sweat, leather, and cold steel. Éomer, the third marshal of the Mark, speaks. His voice is the voice of a man born in the saddle, loud, clear, and carrying the resonance of the wind. The sunlight glints off their polished helmets and long silver-tipped spears. As they ride away, the sound of the horses fades into a distant, soothing hum, leaving the 3 hunters alone in the vast golden silence of the afternoon. Fangorn Forest, the living wood. The trail leads to the edge of Fangorn Forest. This is not like the Shire's woods, nor is it like the golden dream of Lorien. Fangorn is old, it is gray, it is heavy with the weight of uncounted years. The air inside is thick and stale, smelling of ancient bark, wet fungi, and deep, dark loam. The trees do not just stand, they lean. Their branches are like long, twisted fingers covered in gray-green old man's beard lichen. The sound of Fangorn is the sound of creaking wood. Creak. Groan. It is a slow, rhythmic complaining of timber. Merry and Pippin, having escaped the Uruk-hai, climb an old tree, only to find the tree is awake. Treebeard. Imagine the voice of an ent. It is the deepest sound you can conceive. It comes from the roots of the earth. It is a rumbling wooden vibration that takes a long time to form words. Whom. Home. Every syllable is like the grinding of 2 tectonic plates. It is a sound that demands patience. You cannot rush an ent. Their thoughts move with the speed of a growing oak. As Treebeard carries the hobbits through the forest, his footsteps are massive, heavy thuds that resonate through the forest floor. Boom. Pause. Boom. The White Rider returns. In the heart of the forest, the three hunters encounter a blinding light. It is not the yellow light of the sun, but a pure white radiance that seems to burn the shadows away. The sound of the light is a high, crystalline hum. Out of the light steps Gandalf. But he is no longer the gray. He is Gandalf the White. His robes are not just white, they are woven of the very essence of light. The fabric has a subtle, pearlescent shimmer. His staff is a pillar of white wood, topped with a crystal that glows with a steady, calming pulse. His voice has changed. It is deeper, more resonant. "I have passed through fire and deep water," he says. His words are a rhythmic reassurance. He speaks of the mountaintop, of the lightning and the thunder, but here, in the quiet of the woods, his presence is like a warm sun on a winter's day. He calls for his horse, Shadowfax. Shadowfax is the lord of all horses. He does not gallop, he disappears into the distance. The sound of Shadowfax running is a silver rhythm, a blur of motion that sounds like the wind whistling through a high mountain pass. Edoras, the Golden Hall. They ride to Edoras, the capital of Rohan. The city is built on a hill of green, crowned by Meduseld, the Golden Hall. The roof is thatched with gold, reflecting the setting sun so that the entire hill seems to be on fire. The sound of Edoras is the sound of the wind in the banners. The flag of Rohan, a white horse on a green field, snaps in the breeze. Snap, flap, snap. It is a sharp, rhythmic sound that speaks of independence and strength. Inside the hall, the air is cold and carries the scent of sickness and old incense. King Theoden sits on his throne, his body slumped, his eyes filmed with a gray haze. Grima Wormtongue whispers in his ear. Grima's voice is a sibilant, oily hiss, a sound like a snake moving over dry leaves. Hish, hish. It is a corrosive sound, meant to break the rhythm of the king's heart. Gandalf draws the darkness out. The exorcism is a clash of frequencies, the low, grounding hum of Gandalf's power against the high-pitched, frantic shrieking of Saruman's influence. When the shadow breaks, Theoden draws a deep, shuddering breath. In. Out. His eyes clear. He takes his sword, Hurugrim. The sound of the blade being drawn from its scabbard is a clean, singing note of silver. Sing. The king is restored. But the threat remains. The people of Rohan must flee to Helm's Deep. The trek to the deep. Imagine the long line of people moving across the foothills. Thousands of footsteps, the soft shuffle of children, the heavy tread of soldiers, the clatter of pans, and the low lowing of oxen. It is a massive communal rhythm. The sun sets behind the mountains, casting long purple shadows over the column. Éowyn walks among her people. She carries a quiet strength, her breathing steady and calm despite the fear. The air is getting colder as they approach the mountains. The scent of snow is on the wind. Behind them, the shadow of Isengard is growing. Saruman is breeding an army. The sound of Isengard is the sound of industry, the rhythmic clanging of hammers, the roar of the furnaces, the grinding of iron. Clang, whir, clang, whir. It is a mechanical, heartless rhythm that seeks to overwrite the natural pulse of the world. We leave them now as the gates of Helm's Deep loom out of the twilight. The Hornberg is a fortress of gray stone, built into the very bones of the mountain. The air here is cold and still. The stars are starting to appear, cold and distant. The world is holding its breath. The rhythm of peace is about to be challenged by the rhythm of war. But for now, there is only the sound of the wind against the stone and the steady, quiet breathing of a people seeking refuge. Sleep now. The walls are thick. The stone is old. You are safe within the mountain. Let the rhythm of the wind lull you into a deep, dreamless rest. The stone of Helm's Deep and the march of the Ents. The world has retreated within the walls of the Hornberg. Helm's Deep is a place of ancient, cold echoes. The fortress is not merely built upon the mountain, it is carved from its very roots. As you imagine this place, feel the temperature drop. The air is sharp and smells of wet granite, iron, and the coming rain. The stillness before the storm. The Fellowship and the people of Rohan are waiting. There is a specific kind of silence that exists before a storm, a heavy, pressurized quiet that makes every small sound stand out. Listen to the rhythmic sharpening of swords. Shit, shit. The whetstone moves against the steel in a slow, hypnotic slide. It is a metallic whisper, clean and cold. The defenders stand upon the deeping wall. Their breathing is visible in the cold air, small puffs of silver mist that vanish into the dark. The sky is a bruised purple, heavy with clouds that have traveled from the east. The wind begins to pick up, a low moan that whistles through the arrow slits of the towers. Hoo, hoo. Then comes the sound of the Uruk-hai. It begins as a vibration in the soles of the feet, a deep, subsonic thrumming. It is the sound of 10,000 boots striking the earth in perfect unison. Thump, thump, thump. It is the heartbeat of a machine, relentless and devoid of mercy. As they draw closer, the rhythm is joined by the rhythmic clashing of spears against shields. Clang, thud, clang, thud. It is a wall of sound moving through the darkness like a physical wave. The rain begins. It is not a gentle, shire rain. It is a cold, driving deluge. The drops hit the iron helmets with a rhythmic, metallic patter. Tap, 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 tap. The water runs down the stone walls in small silver rivulets, making the granite glisten like obsidian. The smell of wet wool and damp earth becomes overwhelming. The Battle of the Hornberg. The first arrow is released. Imagine the sound of the bowstring, a single sharp twang that vibrates in the air like a plucked harp string. The arrow hisses through the rain. Shoo! A silver streak that disappears into the dark. The battle is a series of rhythmic impacts, the thud of ladders hitting the stone, the heavy resonant boom of the ram against the gate. Boom! Pause. Boom! Each strike sends a vibration through the floor of the hall where the women and children wait. They sit in the dark, their breathing synchronized in a quiet collective prayer. The cave air is warm and smells of old stone and tallow candles. The flickering of the candles is a small rhythmic pulse against the vast darkness of the mountain's heart. Aragorn moves with the fluidity of a river. His movements are not jagged, they are a continuous flow of silver steel and gray cloak. Legolas stands like a statue of white marble, his hands moving in a blur of rhythmic precision. Reach, knock, draw, release. Reach, knock, draw, release. It is a meditation in motion. When the wall is breached, the sound is a deafening crack, followed by a long, low rumble of falling stone. But then the sound of the rain returns, washing over the ruins, a constant, soothing static that persists despite the chaos. While the men fight in the rain, another rhythm is waking up in the heart of Fangorn Forest. The Entmoot has ended. The decision has been made. Treebeard stands at the edge of the forest, looking out at the desolation Saruman has wrought. He let out a long, low cry, not a scream, but a deep, resonant bellow that sounds like a great tree splitting in a storm. Hoom, raw, hoom. The sound travels through the wood, vibrating the roots of every tree for miles. The Ents begin to move. Imagine the sound of a forest walking. It is a slow, ponderous rhythm. Thump, crack, thud. Each step is the weight of a mountain. The earth groans beneath them. The Ents do not hurry. They simply cannot be stopped. They move like a tide of wood and moss, a slow-motion avalanche of nature's wrath. They reach Isengard. The circle of Orthanc is a place of iron and fire. The Ents begin to tear it down. The sound is the grinding of stone against stone, a deep, gritty friction. Grrr, snap. They break the dam. Focus on the sound of the water. The river Isen, held back for so long, is released. It begins as a low growl, then grows into a thundering roar. The water is a wall of silver and white, rushing into the pits of Isengard. When the water hits the furnaces, the sound is a massive rhythmic hiss. A cloud of steam rises thousands of feet into the air, turning the sky white. The fires are extinguished. The mechanical rhythm of the hammers is silenced, replaced by the natural, turbulent rhythm of the flood. The water eventually settles. It becomes a vast, quiet lake, reflecting the black tower of Orthanc. The silence that follows is profound. It is the silence of a cleansed world. The Ride of the Rohirrim. Back at Helm's Deep, the sun is beginning to rise. The light is a pale, cool gold, filtering through the clouds. Theoden stands in the hall. He looks at the dawn. The horn of Helm Hammerhand shall sound in the deep one last time. Gimli blows the horn. It is a massive bronzed sound that shakes the towers. Braum! It is the sound of a world waking up. The king and his riders charge out of the gate. The sound of the horses' hooves on the stone ramp is a sharp staccato rhythm. Clatter, clatter, clack. Then they hit the wet earth, and the sound becomes a deep, rhythmic thumping. At the top of the hill, Gandalf appears. He is a pillar of white light against the morning sun. Beside him is Éomer and 1,000 riders of the Mark. They descend the hill like a wave of silver. The sound is a rhythmic thunder. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum. The light of the sun reflects off their spears, creating a flickering, hypnotic strobe of brightness. The battle ends not with a shout, but with the retreat of the shadow. The Uruk-hai flee into the forest of horns, the trees that have moved during the night. The forest is silent. The trees do not move when you watch them, but when you look away, the shadows shift. The Uruk-hai disappear into the green deep, and the forest closes behind them with a soft final rustle of leaves. Shh. The aftermath and the evening mist. The Fellowship is reunited at the ruins of Isengard. They sit among the floating debris, eating apples and smoking pipeweed. The air is damp and cool, smelling of wet wood and ozone. The sun sets behind the mountains, casting long, peaceful shadows over the water. Merry and Pippin tell their stories. Their voices are a light, rhythmic counterpoint to the deep rumble of Treebeard's thoughts. They sit on the stone walls, swinging their feet in a slow, contented tempo. Frodo and Sam are far away, on the borders of Gondor. They watch the same sun set. They are in the woods of Ithilien. The air here is different. It is warm and carries the scent of wild thyme, resin, and cedar. It is a garden that has gone wild. They are captured by Faramir, but Faramir is not like his brother. His voice is quiet, like the sound of the wind through the pines. He speaks of the history of Gondor, a long, winding story of silver trees and white stone. He leads them to Henneth Annan, the window on the west. Imagine the sound of the waterfall that hides their sanctuary. It is a constant, heavy curtain of water. Roar, hiss, roar, hiss. Behind the falls, the air is cool and misty. The light is filtered through the water, creating a shifting emerald glow on the stone walls. The hobbits lie down to sleep on beds of soft ferns. The sound of the waterfall is the ultimate lullaby, a white noise that drowns out the world, leaving only the rhythm of the water and the pulse of the earth. Gollum sits in the shadows, his eyes glowing like cold lamps. He mutters to himself, a rhythmic internal dialogue, precious, precious. But even his obsession is dampened by the sound of the falls. We leave them here, tucked away in a secret pocket of the world. The mountains are tall, the water is deep, the stars are beginning to pierce through the mist of the waterfall. Sleep now. The water is falling. The earth is steady. The journey is paused in the cool green light of the hidden cave.
The journey has reached its most arduous rhythm. We begin in the land of Ithilien, where the air is still sweet but carries the sharp metallic tang of the nearby shadow. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum are moving toward the Morgul Vale, the Valley of the Dead City. Imagine the silence of Minas Morgul. It is not the restful silence of the Shire, it is a heavy, airless quiet. The city glows with a pale, sickly light, the color of a bruised moon or rotting fungi. The stone of the walls seems to pulse with a slow, rhythmic decay. There is a bridge of white stone crossing a dark stream. The water does not splash, it gurgles with a thick, oily sound. Glub, glub. As the Fellowship of Three approaches, the great gates open. There is no sound of hinges, only a cold rush of air. Then the signal is sent. A beam of ghostly green light shoots into the sky. It is a silent explosion of color that illuminates the clouds, turning them into swirling masses of jade and charcoal. The sound follows moments later, a low, rhythmic thrumming that vibrates in the teeth. Hum. Out of the city rides the Witch King. The sound of his winged steed is a dry, papery rustle. Its breath is a cold hiss. The hobbits press themselves against the cold, jagged rock, their breathing shallow, their eyes wide. They are small, warm points of life in a landscape of cold, ancient malice. The stairs of Cirith Ungol. The climb begins. These are the straight stair and the winding stair. Imagine the physical sensation of the climb. The stone is crumbly and dry, feeling like bone under the fingertips. Each step is a struggle against gravity and exhaustion. Step, breathe, step, breathe. The rhythm is slow and punishing. The air here is thin. It smells of sulfur and old dust. As they climb higher, the world below disappears into a sea of shadow. The only light comes from the distant flickering red glow of Mount Doom, casting long, distorted shadows against the cliff face. Gollum moves with a terrifying rhythmic grace. His long limbs pull him up the vertical rock like a spider. Sam's breathing is heavy and honest, the sound of a heart that refuses to give up. Frodo's movement is different. He moves as if in a trance, his hand constantly straying to the ring, which has become a leaden weight, a physical anchor pulling him toward the dark. At the top of the stairs lies the tunnel of Torek Ungol. The entrance is a black maw that swallows the light. The air inside is stagnant and heavy with the scent of 1,000 years of decay. It smells of sour musk and dry silk. Inside the tunnel, the silence is absolute, until you hear the sound of the webs. Snap, hiss, snap. The webs are thick and sticky, like cords of wet leather. As Sam cuts through them, the sound is a wet, tearing noise. Then comes Shelob. She does not move with the clatter of an insect. She moves with a soft, rhythmic padding. Pat, 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 pat. Her breathing is a wet, bubbling sound. When she strikes, the sound of her stinger is a sharp thwack against the air. Frodo uses the file of Galadriel. The light is a sudden, crystalline explosion. It is the color of a winter star. The sound of the light is a high, singing frequency that drives the darkness back. Sing. It reflects off Shelob's many eyes, which look like clusters of cracked glass. The struggle is a rhythmic dance of light and shadow, ending in the cold, heavy silence of the cave as Frodo falls into a deep, death-like sleep. Samwise Gamgee stands alone. His heartbeat is the only rhythm left in the dark. He takes the file and the sword. His courage is a steady, glowing warmth. When he strikes, the steel of Sting rings with a pure elven note, tang, a sound of hope in a place of despair.
Minas Tirith, the White City. Far to the west, Gandalf and Pippin ride toward the capital of Gondor. Shadowfax moves like a silver arrow across the plains. The sound of his hooves is a fast, rhythmic blur, taka-taka-taka-taka. They reach the gates of Minas Tirith as the sun begins to rise. Minas Tirith is a city of stone and light. It is built in 7 levels, each one carved into the side of the mountain. The stone is white, polished by the wind until it shines like marble. The sound of the city is the sound of the wind whistling through the high battlements and the rhythmic clanging of bells. Dong, dong, dong. They enter the 7th level, the citadel. In the courtyard stands the white tree. It is dead, a skeleton of silver wood. Its branches do not rustle. They are stiff and silent, waiting for a spring that may never come. The air here is cold and carries the scent of the sea and the high snows. Inside the throne room, the silence is oppressive. Denethor, the steward, sits on a cold stone chair. His voice is dry and brittle like autumn leaves. He is a man caught in a rhythm of despair, his mind circling the same dark thoughts over and over. Outside, the beacons are lit. The lighting of the beacons. Imagine the fire jumping from peak to peak. It begins as a single tiny spark on the mountain of Amon Din. Flicker, roar. The fire is fed by dry wood and oil. The sound is a sudden rhythmic crackling. Pop, snap, hiss. The next mountain sees the light and answers, then the next, then the next. It is a rhythmic chain of fire stretching across the mountains of Gondor and Rohan. Light, light, light. From a distance, it looks like a string of golden pearls being draped across the purple velvet of the night sky. In Rohan, Aragorn sees the flame. The beacons of Minas Tirith! The beacons are lit! Gondor calls for aid! Theoden stands tall. His voice is no longer the voice of an old man, but the voice of a king. And Rohan will answer, "Muster the Rohirrim." The muster of Rohan. The sound of the muster is a massive, complex rhythm. Thousands of horses, thousands of men, the clatter of armor being buckled, click-clack, the rhythmic sharpening of spears, the low lowing of oxen pulling the supply wagons. They gather at Dunharrow, a dark valley high in the mountains. The air here is ancient and smells of stone and pine. Above them lies the Dimholt Road, the door to the paths of the dead. Aragorn must go. He moves toward the dark opening in the rock. The air that comes from the tunnel is ice cold and smells of stale incense and old dust. As he, Legolas, and Gimli enter, the sound of the living world fades. The only sound is the rhythmic drip of water from the ceiling. Drip, drop, drip. The dead are a rustling of gray mist. Their voices are 1,000 whispers, a rhythmic sibilance that sounds like dry grass in a winter wind. The way is shut. It was made by those who are dead, and the dead keep it. Aragorn draws his sword, Andúril, the flame of the west. The blade glows with a soft white light. He is the king. He commands the rhythm of the shadows. He leads the army of ghosts toward the light of day. Back at Minas Tirith, the sky has gone black. The dawnless day has arrived. A thick, rhythmic cloud of smoke and ash has covered the sun. The air is hot and heavy. The orcs have reached the walls. They bring the great ram, Grond. Imagine the sound of Grond. It is a massive, iron-headed beast shaped like a wolf. It is pulled by mountain trolls. The rhythm of their footsteps is a heavy, rhythmic thud. Boom, boom. The orcs chant in a deep, guttural tongue. Grond, Grond, Grond. It is a hypnotic, terrifying pulse. The stones of the city begin to fall. The sound of the catapults is a rhythmic thrum, thud. The rocks hit the white walls with a sound like a mountain breaking. Inside the city, the people huddle in the dark. Their breathing is a quiet, rhythmic counterpoint to the thunder outside. Gandalf stands on the wall, his white robes a beacon in the gloom. His voice is a steady, rhythmic reassurance. Keep your courage, the dawn will come. We leave them here at the edge of the great battle. The darkness is thick, the ram is at the gate, the ghosts are on the river, but in the heart of the city, a single candle burns, and in the heart of the mountains, the king is coming. Sleep now. The walls are strong. The light is coming. The rhythm of the world is shifting toward the dawn. Let the sound of the falling rain and the distant bells lull you into a deep, safe rest.
The darkness over Minas Tirith is total. A thick mantle of ash and shadow that stifles the morning. But in the distance, the air begins to change. A wind is blowing from the sea. It is a cool, salt-scented breeze that carries the promise of a new day. The arrival of the Rohirrim. Imagine the silence on the edge of the Pelennor fields just before the dawn. The orc armies are a sea of iron and jagged breathing. Then, from the north,
comes a sound. It is not a shout, but a vibration. The sounds of horns. Ah, oh, The horns of Rohan are not sharp, they are deep, resonant bronze voices that echo against the Mindaluan mountains. Theoden stands before his host. The grass beneath the horse's hooves is damp with a cold gray dew. The king's voice is steady. "Arise, arise, riders of Theoden!" 6,000 horses begin to move. The sound begins as a rhythmic rustle, like the wind in a field of wheat. Then it becomes a trot, clack, pat, and finally the gallop. The sound of 6,000 horses at full speed is a physical force. It is a rhythmic thunder, doo-da-dum, doo-da-dum. It is the heartbeat of the earth itself accelerated into a frenzy. The sunlight finally breaks through the gloom, hitting the silver spears and the golden hair of the riders. It is a strobe of brilliance against the dark. The impact is a massive rhythmic thud as the wall of horses hits the line of iron. The air is filled with the scent of horse breath, ozone, and crushed grass. The Lady of Rohan and the Witch King. In the center of the fray, the Witch King descends. The sound of his fell beast is a rhythmic, leathery whistling, flap, hiss, flap, hiss. When it lands, the earth cracks. The air around the Nazgul is a void of silence, a heavy, pressurized silence. Éowyn stands before him. Her armor is heavy, her breathing rhythmic and focused. In, out, in, out. When the Witch King speaks, his voice is a friction of dry bone, but Éowyn's response is a silver bell. "I am no man." The sound of her blade shattering the unseen crown is a crystalline chime, followed by a long sighing exhale as the shadow dissolves into the wind. The silence that follows is a moment of profound peace amidst the chaos. The paths of the dead arrive. At the docks of Harland, the black ships of the corsairs arrive, but they are not filled with enemies. The air around the ships is cold, a supernatural chill that smells of sea salt and ancient dust. Aragorn leaps from the prow. Behind him, the army of the dead flows onto the field like a green mist. They do not walk, they sweep across the earth with a sound like dry leaves scuttling over stone. Shish. They are a rhythmic tide of jade-colored light. They pass through the iron and the stone as if it were water. The battle is no longer a clash of steel, but a rhythmic cleansing. The green mist washes over the black fields, and where it passes, the shadows are gone. The Land of Shadow, Mordor. While the world of men fights for its life, we return to the silence of the waste. Frodo and Sam are crawling across the Gorgoroth plain. The texture of Mordor is ash. Imagine your hand pressing into a bed of gray cinders. Crunch, puff. The dust is everywhere. It is in their lungs, on their skin, in the very fibers of their woolen cloaks. The air is hot and stagnant, smelling of sulfur and burnt metal. There is no water here. The only liquid is the slow, rhythmic pulse of the blood in their ears. Mount Doom, Orodun, looms above them. It is a mountain of absolute black, its vents pulsing with a deep, rhythmic orange glow. Glow, fade, glow. It looks like the mountain is breathing. The final ascent. Frodo can no longer walk. The ring has become a physical weight that threatens to crush his chest. It is a leaden sphere, a black hole of gravity. Samwise Gamgee looks at the peak. His voice is a whisper of pure iron. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Imagine the rhythm of Sam's climb. Step, heave, breathe. Step, heave, breathe. He carries the weight of the world on his shoulders. The stones under his boots are hot, scorched by the internal fires of the earth. The sound of his breathing is a ragged, heroic bellows. Huff, huff, huff. They reach the Samath Nor, the cracks of doom. Inside, the air is a roaring heat. The sound is a constant low-frequency thrumming of molten rock. Vroom, vroom. The lava below is a river of liquid fire, moving with the viscosity of honey. It glows with a light so bright it transcends color. It is a pure, vibrating heat. The crack of doom. Frodo stands at the edge of the abyss. The ring hangs from its chain, swinging in a slow, hypnotic arc. Left, right, left. The gold reflects the fire. The ring is mine. The words are a quiet finality, but then Gollum strikes. The struggle is a frantic, rhythmic scuffle on the edge of the void. Scrape, pant, hiss. Gollum bites the finger. He holds his precious. He dances. The sound of his joy is a high-pitched, croaking, rhythmic cackling. Then he falls. Imagine the descent into the fire. It is a slow-motion fall into a sea of gold. When the ring hits the lava, there is no splash, it simply sinks. The sound of the ring melting is a long, drawn-out hiss. Zzz. It is the sound of a spell being unmade. The great eye in the distance widens, its rhythmic pulsing becoming frantic, then stuttering, and then, with the sound like a mountain of glass shattering, it vanishes. The eruption and the eagles. The mountain explodes. It is a rhythmic discharge of pressure. The ground shakes, a deep, rolling vibration that travels through the bones. Lava flows down the sides in rhythmic ribbons of fire. Frodo and Sam sit on a lonely rock as the world dissolves around them. They are at peace. The weight is gone. The air is hot, but their breathing is steady. In, out. They talk of the Shire. The memory of the green grass and the soft rain is a cool balm on their minds. Then the sound of wings. Not the papery hiss of the Nazgul, but the powerful, rhythmic beat of the great eagles. Flap, thump, flap, thump. The air moved by their wings is fresh and cool. Gwaihir, the Wind Lord, descends. His talons are gentle as he picks them up from the fire. They are carried away from the ash, up into the high, clean air where the stars are starting to reappear. The return of the king. We move to the crowning of the king. Minas Tirith is no longer a city of shadow. The stone is white again, reflecting the morning sun. The white tree has blossomed. Its leaves are small and silver, rustling with a soft melodic sound. Tinkle-hish. Aragorn stands before his people. The crown is placed on his head. It is a weight of responsibility, but a light one. The sound of the crowd is a rhythmic wave of acclaim. Hail, hail, hail. He sings an ancient song of his fathers, his voice a rich, grounding baritone that fills the courtyard. He turns to the four hobbits, the king of Gondor, the lords of the Mark, the elven princes. They all bow. The silence that follows this gesture is the most powerful sound in the story. It is an acknowledgement of the small being great. The Grey Havens. Finally, we return to the Shire, but the road goes ever on. We find ourselves at the Grey Havens. The sea is a vast rhythmic expanse of silver. The water laps against the white stone of the pier, slap, ripple, slap. The elven ship is a swan of white wood. It sails like the wings of a great bird. Galadriel, Elrond, and Gandalf are there. Their presence is a fading light, a soft transition into memory. Frodo joins them. He gives Sam the Red Book. The last pages are for you, Sam. The ship leaves the shore. Imagine the sound of the water parting before the prow. It is a smooth, liquid hiss. Zzz. The ship moves into the west, towards the undying lands. The mist rises. The sun sets. The world of the Third Age is ending, not with a bang, but with a slow, rhythmic fading of the light. Samwise Gamgee walks back to his home. He opens the round green door. The yellow light of the hearth spills out onto the grass. He sees his children. He hears the sound of the fire crackling. Pop, snap. He sits down. "Well," he says, "I'm back." He draws a deep final breath. In. Out. The door closes with a soft, solid thud. The world is quiet. The stars are out. The journey is over. Sleep now. The mountains are at rest. The sea is calm. The story is told, and the silence that remains is a warm, protective blanket. You are home. You are safe.